love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working.
Hello, Miami, and welcome to 305 Sports Now. I'm your host, Will, and welcome to 305 Live. And the gentleman I am going to bring on tonight, it needs no introduction, but I'm still going to give him one because he's the man. If he was if he was a WWE wrestler, he'd be the Triple H of all producers at WQAM. He'd be the game, okay? He is, of course, the host of the pre- and post-game show for the Miami Heat Radio Network. He is the executive producer of Hawkman and Crowder and WQAM's Miami Dolphins pre-game show host this season of Game Day Uncensored with Brendan Tobin, the man, the myth, the legend, a very good friend of the show, Mr. Alejandro Solana. What's up, brother? How you doing? You're muted, young man.
How about that? What a start by me. Always a pleasure to be brought on. Thank you. What a great start by me.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. I know you're just getting home. It's a rough drive. Is it still raining by where you're at? 'Cause it was a monsoon today over here in Broward.
Brother, it's nonstop. It's nonstop. It's annoying, man. Every day. Yeah. Like the lightning is crazy, but then you're on I take every major highway in Miami. 95 north, 836 I go 826, 836, 95 north, and then on the way home, 95 south, 836, 826. I take every major highway, so it's rough in these conditions.
No, I can imagine, especially that you're still living in Kendall, right? You know, it's the
yes,
traffic
sir.
is not even easier.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you're a Kendall guy, man, through and through, aren't you?
I am. K-Town forever. K-Town lifer.
K-Town. Wanted to ask you, man, how's the wedding planning going? As everybody knows, those that listen to WQAM, you are engaged to your fiance Valentina. So how's everything going?
We have put 0 hours into a wedding plan. Like literally 0 hours. I gave her the rock and now I'm playing prevent defense on the wedding. Now we're you mentioned I live in Kendall. We're right now under contract and hopefully, I don't want to jinx it, knock on wood, but we'll be moving into our new place within the next couple weeks.
Okay.
And then we have our house and then we'll start that process. We'll start the wedding process. Yeah.
Good, man. That's awesome, man. Congratulations, man. Very, very happy for you. Very happy for you. Welcome to married life, brother. Soon, once you walk down that aisle, my friend, they'll be asking you when's the first cake coming along. I'm just gonna let you know that.
Yeah.
You won't be done with that cake, man. And they're gonna ask you right away, "Y el niño?" and say in Spanish, "Y el niño? Oye, niño."
Yeah. My parents are my mom wants another grandchild for sure, so she wants another nieto. So
yeah, absolutely.
I know that's coming. That's coming.
Yeah. Very typical of our culture, man. It really is. Wanted to ask you, brother. You that cover the Miami Dolphins. You're also a major Dolphin fan, as well as me, as well. That Buffalo game, aside from being a horrible game to watch, if you're a fan, Tua goes down yet again. Damar Hamlin, which was a very clean and non-malicious tackle, but Tua's head always seems to find the ground. He gets hurt. Has another concussion. Team is taking a lot of precaution in bringing him back. He's from what I've heard, he won't be back to the Cardinals game. But when you saw that live, what were your thoughts? What was going through your head?
Yeah, it's weird because we have to look at the Buffalo game and separate it, right? We talk about everything that happened leading up to the concussion, and obviously nobody has anything good to say about the Dolphins there. But after the concussion takes place, now it's hard to really even process, well, did the first 3 quarters matter then? Is Tua going to be back? My initial reaction was just heartbreak. Look, aside from what anybody thinks about Tua as a quarterback, right? I think you have to separate football from real life. I mean, we all take football seriously. Football pays my bills, so I take it seriously, but the reality is that this is just a human being, man. Like, this is his chosen profession. That comes with scrutiny. That comes with criticism. It's a part of the job. There's no doubt about it. But when things like this happen, I think as a fan, as a media member, as just somebody who keeps up with current events. This is a huge story. You got to be able to separate like the football from just the human being. And I like Tua, the guy. I think he's a good dude. He's a father now. He's married. Like, I don't want to see him go down and he's fencing again, right? Like his hands are, man, it was immediately, it's just like, no, come on, man. Like, forget the Dolphins' aspirations, forget the expectations. Just, man, this guy worked his entire life to be in this moment. He gets paid. He is now the franchise player for an organization in the NFL. And he's struggling to stay upright. He's struggling to stay on the field. That sucks for anybody, man.
Mhm.
Like, especially, it's not an ACL, it's not an Achilles. Like, any injury sucks. But from the standpoint of this could affect his livelihood, this could affect the way he's able to function as a human being down the line. Yeah, I mean, it just immediately, like, all those things kind of pop into my head when I see him there on the ground and he's receiving medical attention. And then, quite frankly, like, they show the replay on Amazon Prime, and you're like, man, why didn't you just slide, bro? Go
Mhm.
down. And then it's like, well, that wasn't even that big of a hit either. It was a lot, it was a lot to process. But more than anything, I was at the game in Cincinnati. I was working with the Dolphins radio broadcast in Cincinnati on Thursday Night Football 2 years ago when Tua went down. He had to be taken off on a stretcher. He was down for minutes. I mean, if for those of you that don't remember, I mean, there was probably a good 20-minute break in game action that night. And the stadium was in Cincy, stadium's dead quiet because you didn't know. Like, everybody saw his hands and you didn't know, is he going to be okay? You didn't know
Yeah.
that night. Luckily, he's able to get up, walk off the field, and now we know, right? Like, he's doing much better. Tyreek Hill said today, like, that he's doing amazing. So, I mean, those things are all great signs. But yeah, I mean, initially, how could you not, no matter what you feel about Tua Tagovailoa, how could you not see that happen and go, oh no, right? Like, no, poor guy.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I saw him go down, I was like, that wasn't even that major hit. I know he hit his head. If you look at the replay again, he bumped his head off the ground again, which happens a lot with him. I knew he was done. I knew he was done once he went down, and once it went back to the tent and went into the locker room to check up on him. But there's been a lot of conversation about whether he should retire or not. Mainstream media per se, and the mainstream sports media, the fan base, both Dolphin and non-Dolphin fan base, have been saying maybe he should just retire already because it's like his fourth or fifth concussion already. JJ Watt came out there and asked for him to retire as well. Where are you at as far as Tua goes? I'll give you my take after yours. What I think. Should he retire? Do you think he should retire? Do you think it's, the game has changed now. You're no longer getting a concussion and coming back a week later, or in some cases in the 80s, coming back after halftime and finishing off the game. Where are you at as far as Tua's future with the Dolphins organization?
Yeah, I didn't know JJ Watt said or called for him to retire because I watched a video JJ Watt posted and I thought he made a fantastic point, which was the same people criticizing Tua for not going down are the same people that would criticize maybe not Tua, but a player in the same situation, in a dire situation in the game where you're just trying to turn momentum for not putting your shoulder down and trying to bulldoze somebody. So
It might have been my
thought,
fault. I might have read it as a comment that he said to retire. It might have been. I might have been wrong on that one.
Yeah, he may have, but I was going to reference his video because I think that was a very astute point by him, which was, the way that we as consumers view this game. Like, these guys are immortal. These guys are warriors. And to watch a guy go down when, hey, you're down, what was it, 24-7 at that point? Maybe putting your shoulder down, getting the few extra couple of yards is a difference between you scoring a touchdown on that drive and you having to kick a field goal on that drive. And that could swing momentum. So I thought that was a good point by JJ Watt. Look, man, I didn't like, truthfully, the way that people immediately just start saying he's done, he's got to retire. The Dolphins shouldn't let him play. I get it. I get where it's coming from. There isn't a single person who watched that, or at least a single sane person, because there's a lot of sickos in our world, but there's not a
Mhm.
single sane person who has watched these concussions take place, specifically the 2 Thursday Night Football ones, that doesn't look at that and doesn't feel uncomfortable. Not from the not from the standpoint of what it is that's actually happening, but from the standpoint of nobody would want to be in that situation, right? Nobody wants to see Tua Tagovailoa literally risk his life anymore. And I get that. Like I empathize with that. But the reality is a 20-something-year-old in what should be the prime of his career, everything he has worked for in his entire life, his identity is playing this game.
Mhm.
And to me, it's unfair for a bunch of people on social media and pundits on ESPN. Like they have the resume to be there. I'm not taking shots at any of them, but to me, it's like a knee jerk reaction to just immediately come out and say he should retire. That's it. I'm too uncomfortable watching this. He should retire. That's not the way it works. It's just not. Like, this is a guy whose entire life has been to be in this moment. And yeah, it's being stripped away from him, for lack of a better word, because he can't stay on the field. He can't stay healthy. But I didn't expect Tua to retire. I didn't expect Tua to go on the IR. I think that was the right choice. We were talking with Gino Torretta today on the show, former Heisman Trophy winner, played for the Canes, played in the NFL 4 or 5 seasons. And he told us about a concussion experience he had. And it was wild. What he felt, he had one on-field concussion playing in the NFL. I think it was his rookie season, he said. And he told us about the entire experience. It was wild. It was deep. You know, he told us that he couldn't remember how he got to the stadium that day a few minutes later. And he says, looking back, you know, knowing what he knows now, having the wisdom of somebody who's at his age, like he wouldn't, if he was in Tua's shoes, continue to play. And I think a lot of guys who are 40, 50, 60 years old who have retired from the NFL have that advice for Tua. Think of your future, think of your family. And all of that is fair because those guys have the wisdom of being that old and understanding how important it is to have your brain working properly, right? So you can enjoy time with your kids, time with your family, just enjoy your life. But I also think if you asked any of those guys while they were in the NFL in the prime of their career, I think a lot of them would have different answers as well. So, should Tua retire? Like, not my advice to him, but should he retire? Listen, man, dude's set up for life. Even if he plays, even if he doesn't, he's made a lot of money already. His contract this year, before the extension, before all that stuff, he's made a lot of money already.
Mhm.
Is it, 10 generations worth of changing money? Maybe not, but it's good to set him and his family up for quite some time. Should he retire? I mean, if it was me, having all this context, yeah, I mean, it's easy to say, brother, hang it up, man. Like, what are you doing to yourself? But I would never tell another person, A, how to live their life. And B, I would never expect a professional athlete just being around these dudes. They're built different, bro.
Mhm.
They just are. And to tell somebody whose entire life has been doing this, that, hey, you shouldn't do this anymore, and you're not a doctor, to me, is just dumb. Like, you can have your opinion. I think everybody would say the same thing. Hang it up, bro. You've made your money. Go live your life. Go enjoy your kids, your wife, your family. That's cool. Like, everybody would agree with that. But you're not in that situation, man. Like, this dude, everything he's done, every single day of his life leading to be in this position, it's not easy to walk away from. So people who are going to judge Tua for continuing to play and who are going to say he's making the wrong decision, like, maybe, you know, but I get it because I see guys all the time who are getting concussions in the NFL. Nobody's calling for them to be retired or to consider retirement. It's just this specific instance or this specific situation with Tua where now we, the consumer, are uncomfortable
Mhm.
with this player being concussed because of the way it looks on the field.
Mhm.
But we all know there's a million concussions happening in the NFL, and guys continue to play, and nobody has an issue with it. And in times, there's fan bases who criticize players for not coming back
Yeah.
early from these types of injuries or injuries in general. But now because the content on the field is no longer appeasing to you, now you're saying, "Oh no, that guy can't play. NFL needs to step in." You either like this sport or you don't, and this is the reality of this sport.
Yeah, I agree with you. I also think that a lot of those guys that, first of all, I love Gino. Okay, I grew up watching Gino Torretta. I remember his championships as a Cane. In I would say late 40s, 50s, and 60s, that when they played in the NFL, there wasn't as much precaution for concussions as there is now. Like I remember an article of Jim McMahon when he played for the Bears. I think it was in the Chicago Tribune or Times, whatever it was, one of the more local papers. It said McMahon had a concussion in the first half, felt better at halftime, came back into the game. So he played with a concussion. I remember Dan Marino. I think it was against the Jets. I was going to ask Zach Cranston if he was supposed to be on here, but he couldn't make it, or could bring on later on in the future. Since he's around my age, you remember the game? I think it was against the Jets where Dan Marino had the smelling salt put on him, and he, it worked, and he came back and played again as well. Back then, there was not as much examination, as much test for concussions as there is today. So that being said, I know we hear the stories of Mike Webster, what happened to Junior Seau, Andre, where guys have been really affected, because of head trauma that was never taken care of. But now the NFL is really taking a look at that. Guys are now out are not playing. They're out on IR significant time. I'm not a neurologist. I would like to know what neurologists say about that. Does the head have time to heal? So then when they come back in the game, they're fresh and they can live long, healthy lives because they tackle the problem early. Unlike back in the day where it was like Joe Rose used to call it, "Oh, you just got a little ding in the head, get back in the game." That doesn't happen, and that's not happening anymore. They're taking a lot of precaution with Tua, and I agree with the precaution. That's what I'm saying. That I think we should listen to. I think the fan base and Tua should listen to neurologists, and I think whatever they say and how Tua feels and so on, I think it should be ultimately his decision. In reference to when he comes back. So that's just my take on it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, that's why I said I'm not a doctor, I'm not studying the science of concussions,
Mm-hmm.
no matter how many Twitter threads I read. I'm with you, which is what I think Tua's going to do, by the way. Tua's not getting back on that field, whether it's clearance by the Dolphins or clearance by the NFL, if doctors don't clear him.
Mm-hmm.
Think of Chris Bosh. We talked about this on the show. Chris Bosh had blood clots.
Yeah.
Chris Bosh wanted to play. Chris Bosh, at one point, I believe, was pursuing litigation against the Miami Heat because he wanted to play. And the Heat were like, "No. Our doctors are saying, no, you could die. If we travel, if you get on an airplane, these blood thinners could cost you your life." So the Heat said, "No, you're not cleared, period." And no team would have cleared him in the NBA, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
If Tua is cleared by doctors, by neurologists, and he still wants to play, it's up to him, man. I don't think the NFL can. I see a lot of people saying this, right? The NFL needs to step in. They need to protect him from himself. Okay, I get it. All this is coming from a good place when people say this. Like, Manti Te'o, the very next day, who has known Tua since he was a kid, like, you could tell emotionally he was distraught. Like, that he saw somebody he cared for so much going through this again. And he's coming from a good place where he's like, Tua needs to retire. Like, he's not saying that because he wants to, force Tua into a decision that, no, like, he's seeing somebody he loves or he has, fond feelings for going through something terrible, and he knows what the repercussions could be.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, as far along as our society has gone with understanding and accepting and pushing mental health, and as far along as the science has come along on concussions and head injuries and head trauma and the severity of that down the line, nobody can say for sure. There is not a single person in the world that can say for sure that if Tua continues to play football, if Tua suffers another concussion, he will go down the same path as, unfortunately, Junior Seau. Like, nobody knows that for sure. So I don't like speaking in the sense of like, X will happen. Nobody knows. And I think Tua, understanding that he has one season under his belt last year, where he stayed upright and he didn't get hit and he avoided contact. Him understanding that, him knowing that, I think also adds that extra element of in his mind, oh, well, I know what I have to do. Just do what I did last year. Don't take hits, go down, and play that style. And I think this year he wanted to kind of move away from that. He had his healthy season. He wanted to show more of his mobility. What are they calling him? Nimble Tua. Like he
Mhm.
wanted to show that, hey, I'm good. And unfortunately, it was, one play that kind of set him back a little bit. But I'm with you in the sense of, hey, like there's a lot of science that shows that this could be a dangerous situation. And if doctors say no, then I don't think Tua should play. If doctors clear him and the NFL tries to keep him from playing, I think Tua could certainly, hire some good lawyers and figure out a way to get back on the field. Because what precedent are they setting there if doctors, neurologists, the science is clearing him, but the NFL is saying, well, our audience doesn't like watching you on the ground, so we're not going to let you play. That's a dangerous precedent
Mhm.
that the league office would be setting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Totally, absolutely. But I want to ask you something. Since this is his fourth concussion, and he has had a history with injury in the past. He was drafted, coming from a very it would look like that was a career-ending injury on his own. He was at Alabama, the hip injury. From my perspective, I'm gonna give you my perspective, and you can, and you can and chime in, please. I do think the Miami Dolphins should maybe think about drafting another quarterback this upcoming NFL draft. And the reason why I say that is because with the whole Skylar Thomas situation, you don't have another guy. I think and since Tua's contract isn't this overwhelmingly long deal, I do think if something was to happen to him, or the Dolphins just even from a professional level, he's not doing what they need to get him to the next level. The Miami Dolphins already have a plan B, and they could bring in a guy like, for example, I think it's gonna be a first round pick. It'd be hard to get, but you give it like a Cam Ward, a Jackson Dart, a Dylan Gabriel, guys that it's a very good draft class for quarterbacks coming in college this year. So I think the Dolphins should consider at least drafting a quarterback. So if in the next year or so Tua doesn't pan out, they're able to move on from him via trade or just cap casualty, whatever it is, and they're able to get the next guy ready for him to be the future quarterback of the Fins. And of course, please, Chris Greer, do not draft somebody with injury history, somebody that's not injury prone or has an injury history, so then they'll be able to play for a significantly long time. And of course, draft as many fat offensive linemen that can block. That's another thing too. I will say the Dolphins should focus on this upcoming draft season. What do you think about maybe the possibility of the Dolphins, even though a little early because Tua's still a young man, however, drafting somebody that could potentially replace him in the future?
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. Look,
Okay.
as harsh as it sounds, I mean, I just, I just told you how much I feel for Tua Tagovailoa. I
Mm-hmm.
think the Miami Dolphins would be out of their minds. Whoever's leading this organization, Chris Greer, Mike McDaniel, Stephen Ross, whoever wants to call the shot, I think you would be out of your mind to genuinely believe that Tua Tagovailoa, after this fourth confirmed concussion, can still be your franchise quarterback to lead you to a Super Bowl. Is he talented enough? I think he is talented enough. I had my questions about Tua, the football player, before this injury or before this concussion. I don't think he's on the level of Patrick Mahomes. Nobody is, to be
Mm-hmm.
fair. But I also don't think he's on that level of like the guys we consider tier two, the Josh Allens, the Joe Burrows. I don't. I think he's just one notch below that, which is good. That's a good situation to be in. They paid him. I thought he deserved it.
Mm-hmm.
But I never had the confidence, not only in this team, and we just don't have enough time to go through my issues with this team as a whole, but I never had the confidence that Tua Tagovailoa was going to go win a Super Bowl. As good as the Dolphins looked last year, you saw what happened when they went up against competition that was either at their level or above it.
Mm-hmm.
They underachieved, and this year was supposed to be different. And I know we only got one full game and about 2.5 quarters of it, but I think that was proof positive enough to show us that this team didn't narrow the gap between them and the biggest team standing in their way to take that next leap. That was before Tua suffers this concussion, and now we're looking at a dire situation with Skylar Thompson. I'll say this regarding Skylar Thompson. I want to see it on Sunday. I want to see it over the next 2-3 weeks. Maybe Skylar, the guy, Chris Greer, Mike McDaniel, have handpicked to be Tua's backup, maybe that was the right plan. And we're just not giving them enough credit because we haven't seen it yet. I don't expect that to be the case, but I think it's fair to at least give this organization the benefit of the doubt. They told us Skylar Thompson's the backup. They've kept him here 3 years. They kept him off the practice squad so no other team could poach him. He's had a roster spot this year. He beat out the guy that they paid money to come be the backup. They chose this guy to be Tua's backup. Knowing Tua's injury history and concussion history, do I think he's going to end up being the guy that a lot of us hope he's going to be? I don't, unfortunately. I wish he will be. But I think it's fair to at least let this process play out. With that being said, the Dolphins should absolutely go draft quarterbacks. I think they should have been drafting quarterbacks. I think the more competition in the quarterback room, the better. And to me, Mike White was a cool option. South Florida kid, good dude. He certainly had some decent games with the New York Jets, but the reality is he didn't do much with the New York Jets. He's a backup quarterback. This situation to me always seemed probable. Maybe not likely, but probable. And here we are. And I think the Dolphins, starting with Chris Greer, have mismanaged this entire situation. Not so much the contract, but downplaying the importance of a solid offensive line when you do have a quarterback with injury concerns outside of concussions, and not going after other quarterbacks as well, in my opinion, over the past couple of years. And I know it's easy to take this side now, knowing what we know. I realize that because I can't tell you who the Dolphins should have drafted instead of X. But in my opinion, I just never thought Tua was the guy to take you to the Super Bowl. And I think, the Dolphins should have noticed that as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is a great comment by G Bomba. See if you want to address it. He writes, great points, although the main issue remains if Tua can't play anymore, a new draft puts this team at least 3 years away from trying to make the playoffs again. Here we go again. What are your thoughts on Bomba's comment?
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Look, this is a bad situation, man, and it's unprecedented in the NFL. So like I'm as tough on Chris Greer as anybody, I think. And I've been tough on Chris Greer for the past couple of years on the radio. But like this situation just sucks. Like I give him the benefit of the doubt here because I didn't have a problem per se with paying Tua. I would have waited, but I have a problem per se. Like I get it. You found a guy who led the league in passing. Like anybody else in that situation gets paid. So why wouldn't Tua have gotten paid? So I get it. But how can anybody managing an organization feel comfortable putting a team together and the most important cog to that team is a guy that you are not 100% certain is not going to miss at least 4 to 5 games a season because he gets hit? I mean, that's a bad situation to be in the NFL, the most violent sport there is. Can Tua go another season? Can he come back and look like that guy and stay upright and avoid being hit? Sure. But don't we all kind of feel like it's just a matter of time before this happens again? And A, it's scary for Tua, but B, that is a terrible situation to be in if you're an NFL head coach, if you're an NFL GM. You're banking on a guy that you're not certain can stay healthy for a season, and it's not even injury concerns. It's not something that medically you can do. It's just he's going to take a hit, not know how to fall, and at minimum miss 4 games. To me, that's a bad situation to be in. Regarding the point of if the Dolphins were to go find another quarterback, they'd be 3 years away. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, think of what the LA Rams did a couple years ago with Matthew Stafford. I'm not saying it's Matthew Stafford, even though I've seen some people float that idea around.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
The Rams are cooked, and maybe they want to give him a year or two that he has left to go and try to win again. Like, to me, there's options on the table where you can go prioritize drafting somebody, even if it's not with a first round pick, but just somebody you feel good about. And you can find another quarterback that, and I realize it's not like a long list of guys, but there's tends to be somebody available that maybe gives you a better chance at winning. And again, this sucks. Like, I wanted it to be Tua. I wanted Tua to prove me wrong. I did. I wanted it to be Tua because I genuinely like this dude. I don't understand from a football operations standpoint how they can genuinely look at Stephen Ross and say, yeah, we're gonna ride with this guy. I don't know how. How do you sell that to your owner? Aside from the contract you gave him, I guess.
I just think that he's trusting his football people, and Chris Greer is a football guy, so he's trusting. And Chris Greer, for all the criticism he gets, he's had some good guys get drafted, and we should know because they're getting paid either by us or by somebody else. So I guess that's one reason why Stephen Ross has my biggest thing is you let go of Mike. Why do you have Skylar Thompson and no plan C, per se? So that's my take on it, and I think they dropped the ball, with that.
So that and that was kind of my take on it. Hawk and Crowder both had, I thought, was a great rebuttal, which was they had a plan B, but how many teams have a plan C?
Mm-hmm.
Like, look at any other, and it's totally fair. Like, you can nitpick what I'm saying, and I think it's totally fair. I mean, their plan B is Skylar Thompson, which is why I said, let's see how it plays out. If it's a total disaster and the Dolphins go 0-4, well, guess what? Like, somebody has to answer for that. This is a guy you picked. How many organizations around the league have a plan C? Like a real plan C that is going to come in and take you to the promised land? Nobody. Yeah. Like, the only team that you could say had a plan C was the San Francisco 49ers. But that's just luck, man. They drafted a guy in the 7th round, just like the Dolphins did with Skylar Thompson, who ended up being good. And is he really an elite quarterback, or is he a product of the system? Like, it's probably somewhere in between, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely better than where he was drafted, but he's probably not an elite quarterback that somebody's going to want to pay $300 million for to lead an organization. So, like, part of it is luck, and part of it is just the reality. If your number one quarterback goes down, who's an elite quarterback, your season's probably cooked anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And if your backup is good enough, you don't have another backup that's good enough. Like, you're lucky and fortunate enough in the NFL to have two guys in the quarterback room you feel confident in. And I don't think there's many teams that can say that.
Yeah. The Dolphins years ago, one of my students was asking me today about what I thought about Skylar Thompson and what I thought about the whole Tua situation. I told him the same that I told you. I told him that I feel bad for Tua, but I do think they need to draft a quarterback in next year's draft, whether it's in the first round or get a second or third rounder where there's not so much pressure to start him right away because he's not a first round pick. So that's where I would go. But I told him, I go, man, when the Dolphins, I mean, you were really young, like really microscopically young, but the Dolphins had Scott Seekels, who was a dependable backup with for Dan Marino, and so was Scott Mitchell. Scott Mitchell ended up starting for the Detroit Lions, years later. So the Dolphins used to have a plan B and a plan C years ago, and they just obviously different ownership, but they just don't have it anymore. They just don't. And you're right, a lot of teams don't do that. The only team that comes slightly close, I would say, is the Packers. That they always seem to draft their star players replacement when the player tends to get a little long in the tooth. They had Don Majkowski, then they went Brett Favre, then they went Aaron Rodgers, now they got Jordan Love. So that's the only team that kind of does that.
Yeah, and the thing is that Tua is still young. Like,
yeah, he is.
So I get it from the standpoint of why are you drafting somebody when you have your franchise quarterback? Like, the Packers didn't draft Jordan Love when Aaron Rodgers was in the prime of his career. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was still winning MVPs when they drafted him. Don't get me wrong, but everybody kind of knew like Aaron was on more of a downward trend and just based on his age, right? Like, they drafted Jordan Love when Aaron Rodgers was 36, I believe. 30, he's 40 now. So, I mean, they didn't draft him when he was 29. you know what I mean? Like, it's a different. And to your point about the Dolphins, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you're right. I was very young. I'm 30 years old. I was 5 the last time the Dolphins won a playoff game. I don't remember Dan Marino other than YouTube highlights. So I just don't hate me all you want.
It was a beauty, man. It was a beauty.
I'll make those of you who I'll make those of you who are older than me who do remember Dan feel even older. Like, there's Dolphins fans born in 2010 that are 14 years old right now that literally, like, we're 10 years removed from Dan Marino and all they know is nothing. You know what I mean? Like, but correct me if I'm wrong. the game has evolved so much.
Yeah.
Where back then, I mean, you could just pound the ball and your defense could win you games, and you could be a starting quarterback and you weren't throwing over 150 yards, but you were just a solid guy to just
Yeah.
lead the offense. And nowadays, like, there are examples of that, but not to that extreme. I mean, I don't think there's many guys around the league who are considered third string quarterbacks who could start for NFL teams in the NFL, for competitive NFL teams in the
Yeah.
NFL. Again, they're like, this conversation isn't black and white. Look at Geno Smith. I mean, there's a ton of guys. Baker Mayfield. Is it Sam Bradford right now, or like in Minnesota?
Yeah.
Like, there's a ton of guys that we could say, look, everybody thought their careers were done, and now they found landing spots. But are those guys winning you Super Bowls?
I'm sorry, it was Sam Darnold in Minnesota.
Sam Darnold. I
Sam
knew
Darnold.
that.
Yeah, Sam Darnold.
I knew that didn't sound right. Yeah, are those guys winning you Super Bowls? Probably not. Like, the only quarterback, go look at the list of quarterback or Super Bowl winners. I mean, the only like backup, Nick Foles. Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to talk about Trent Dilfer. But like, dude, that was 20 years ago, man.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. The Dolphins were unique in the 90s though, because they really didn't have much of a running game. They were an I'm just telling you because like you said, you don't really remember Dan Marino. The Dolphins had pretty much a pass attack the whole time. Mark Higgs never got to 1,000 yards. So I'm saying that they were lucky they had 3 guys that could start for NFL teams that were that good, that when Marino went down, they could at least hold the fort. So piggybacking now basically piggybacking what you're saying, Skylar Thompson's looked good against 2s and 3s. Now he has the opportunity to prove himself. He's had literally 10 days. And Seattle's not exactly a world beater. Do you think with Skylar Thompson, knowing they're more than likely going to stack the box to stop Achane, do you think Skylar Thompson can hold the fort for at least a couple games before Tua gets back, or do you think that I don't know about that? It's starting bullets coming at him.
Yeah. So just speaking honestly, no, I don't think this is going to go, great. I don't, but
Okay.
I hope it does. Like, I genuinely, Skylar's a great dude too. Like, I hope it does, but no, I don't. I mean, I think we all know what Skylar Thompson is. He's a backup quarterback, I don't think the Dolphins are set up. The Packers the other day went into a game with their backup quarterback, and Malik Willis threw 14 passes. He completed 12. He was a game manager, and they just ran the hell out of the ball with their fat guys up front. They handed it off to Josh Jacobs like 150 times in that game, and they're able to win the battle up front on both sides of the football, and they beat a Colts team. The Dolphins aren't positioned or aren't built to win games like that. They're just not. As much as the narrative throughout the offseason was about ending the narrative about them being a finesse team and a soft team, right? Jordan Poyer said it in the offseason that, yeah, the Bills always felt like the Dolphins were a soft team and that they were going to prove that they've taken a step forward and that they're going to be a more physical team. And man, we saw it against Buffalo. Like, they're just not.
Yeah.
They're just not. And the second they get down and they're down 10 points, 2 scores, how do they respond? Well, Tua's looking for Tyreek and Waddle. And if you take those 2 guys away, they can't run the ball because their running backs are hurt and their offensive line is not that good. And yeah, you have Devon Achane and he's amazing, but teams figure that out. Buffalo did. So to me, like, the way I would approach it if I'm Mike McDaniel, I would open the playbook for Skylar Thompson. Let's see what you got, right? Let's go. I'm not running, a simple down version of my playbook. Let's go. Let's go see what you got. Because to me, that's the only way that they can win. I don't think that they can do it by winning the battle up front, even though the Seahawks injury report is like 30 pages. I think the Dolphins' 2 biggest weaknesses outside of obviously Tua being out, their offensive line and their defensive line. Mm-hmm. And that's a bad position to be in when you're without your quarterback and you're trying to win games in the trenches. They're not going to be able to do it that way, in my opinion. To me, let Skylar go out there and try to run the offense to the best of his abilities, but don't limit him. Just let him go. And let's see. Maybe he can connect. Maybe he can throw the ball 35, 40 times in the game. Hit Tyreek. hit Waddle. They can have big chunk plays. To me, that's the best way to approach this, because if you try to do it running the ball and trying to chew clock and have time of possession on your side, I don't think the Dolphins are built to win like that. I hope I'm wrong. Maybe they are. Maybe Mike McDaniel has some tricks up his sleeve. But I don't see it.
What's up, Bobby? Thank you so much, man. Bobby is a great friend of the show. All right. Your brother's been on his show, actually, for the Fins Talk Sports Network, talking a little soccer with him and a little Miami Heat as well. If you guys get a chance, please subscribe to the Fins Talk Sports Network, FTSN. They have a lot of content for everything. Everything, you name it, they have it. I think then they're missing is golf and hockey may be coming up real soon, foreshadowing there, all right, as well. So if you like wrestling, Bobby's your guy. If you like basketball, Bobby's your guy. You like football, Bobby's your guy. They have a new Canes channel, Bobby's your guy. Baseball, Bobby's your guy. I think they even have a baseball card show as well there for people who like collectibles. Bobby's your guy, all right? The FTSN network, please, guys, subscribe to that channel and listen to them all together, man. Alejandro, thank you so much for joining us. This was a very tough conversation to have, and I'm grateful that you're on because, like I said, I really respect your voice on WQAM. I appreciate you too, Bobby. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure. I respect your voice, WQAM. Your football knowledge is fantastic, as well as the history of the game as well. Again, thank you for having this tough conversation. Let us know where we can find you, all right, as well, whether it's QAM, on Odyssey. Let the public know.
Yeah, 2 to 6. Hockman and Crowder. Listen to some of my bad takes on there. On 560 WQAM with former NFL linebacker, Dolphins linebacker Channing Crowder, Mark Hockman. I'm like the third voice on that show. So, and if you're in your car driving to a Dolphins game, or maybe you're buying some tailgating supplies or whatever in the morning leading up to games, or this week at 4:05 game. So we're on 4 hours before. Me and Brendan Tobin, who also works at WQAM, at Alex M. Solana is my handle. If anybody wants to tell me they disagree with me, let's go. Let's battle it out in the DMs. I'm all for it. Hey, Will, I got to ask you a question, though, before we go.
Of course. Go ahead.
You said you want the Dolphins to draft a quarterback.
I do.
The first guy you named was Cam Ward.
Yes.
Now, I know you're a big Canes fan.
Yes.
And I'm off WQAM right now, where I have to pretend to be the biggest FIU fan. I grew up as a Canes fan. I love Cam. There's no doubt about it. But you're confident he'll be a great NFL quarterback?
As of right now, from what we've seen, yes. The one thing I love about Cam, aside from the trick throws that has reminded people of Patrick Mahomes, I think he has, for being a college quarterback and only really 4 years, it's not like he's like this 5th, 6th, 7th year quarterback. No, he has really good pocket presence. Like, he knows when someone's coming to sack him, and he rolls out at the right time and he makes the right throw. He runs, and he can run for chunk plays, but he'll never allow himself to get hit. He will go out of bounds. He'll slide. So he knows how to protect his own body as well. So yeah, I do think with the right team, okay. I mean, I feel bad for Bryce Young because that team just stinks all around. That Carolina Panthers team is just horrible. So I don't think it's so much of a Bryce problem as much as it's a Carolina problem. I think with the right team, if he's in the right system, let's say like a 49ers system as well, the Dolphins, if he's quick enough to get away from pressure, if you could roll him out, and Tyreek Hill will love him because he's got a hell of a cannon. The Dolphins would be a good fit for him. But if he's with the right team, that has the right management, the right coaching, the right personnel around him, even if it's not elite, he can make a lot of things happen. Listen, when he was at Washington State, the offensive line wasn't that great. He almost threw for 40 touchdowns every single year with a mediocre offensive line. And now look at him with the Canes right now. I know Florida isn't that good, and I know it's not elite competition. You're gonna get a bigger test this weekend against South Florida, and then ACC play comes along. But the confidence he has, the maturity he has, the leadership he has. He threw that one interception against the Gators. First thing he did was grab that iPad, bring his receivers together, see what went wrong. He's got it, man. He really does have it. He really does have it. I don't think he's a year one starter. I think he's a guy that's has to sit out. Like, I think most quarterbacks should do regardless. Sit out that 1 year, learn the speed of the NFL, and then get in there. But I think he's got it, man. I really do. I really do. I'm not saying as a Canes fan. I'm just saying it as somebody that's watched this young man and at spring and watched him on the field as well, in live action.
All right. I hope you're right. Yeah. No, I mean, I can't argue with anything you said other than reminds me of Patrick Mahomes. Like, I get it. He's throwing some
No,
sidearm passes.
well,
I
the
mean,
sidearm passes. No, he's no. Pat is a freak, man. That guy's a freak of his own. Like, he is a freak. Listen, when I saw that Super Bowl, and he was, I knew I was going for the 49ers, but I saw that his eyes, I'm like, oh, they're done. that game-winning drive, I'm like, they're done. Like, they're done. Like, he's a freak. He's a freak. I'm just saying that the sidearm passes and the unique throwing motion. Yeah, that's what reminds me of Pat. He's not Pat. He's definitely not Pat. But I do like his pocket presence, and I think that'll take you a long way in the National Football League.
Yeah, and he just plays with like that confidence, right? Like,
yeah, he does.
The way he carries himself in the pocket, it's just to me, it's like I want to see him do it over the course of a year.
Yeah,
and I want to see him do it against ACC teams, even if it's not FSU at their best. They're trash this year, thank God. But I want to see it against like real competition because. Man, the Canes offensive line, we're all talking about Cam Ward. To me, like the MVP thus far, as great as Cam has been the offensive line because
absolutely.
He's just sitting back there. And like a lot of guys could look good with that type of pocket. I'm not taking anything away from Cam. Like this guy's been perfect outside of one interception.
Yeah.
And hey, that happens against Florida. But yeah, I want to see him do it over the course of the year before I'm like, yeah, he's an NFL guy. I hope he is, by the way. Like I hope so.
I get you, but he also torched Oregon when he was at Washington State, which has very good players. Those guys get drafted. He torched Oregon State as well. He torches Cal. I mean, Cal sucks, but those guys do get drafted. In the NFL, they do play. That's still a Power 5 school. So he has done it against competition that's not just Ball State. That's what I'm saying. And let me tell you, to go into the Swamp, 89,000 fans against you. Regardless of how bad Florida is right now, they do recruit 4 or 5-star guys that are supposed to be elite that even UM wanted as well at one point in their college careers, and go in there with calm precision and just microscopically destroy them, whether it was in man coverage, blitzes, or zones. That says a lot about the guy. But yeah, this Saturday night is a good test. Friday, a great test against Virginia Tech. I agree with you, but I just think right now I don't see anybody stopping him. There's just so many weapons around him too. Like, who are you going to stop? Like the running backs? Okay, fine. Take them out. All right. Tight end, wide receiver. Or you're going to stop Xavier Stripple? Hey, Jacoby, go deep. Go deep and so on. Give me a flyer. Give me a go route. Boom. You're in trouble with that team. And listen, man. Day and night, man. Same team, almost the same team with Tyler Van Dyke, and now almost the same team with Cam Ward. Day and night, that team has looked. It's incredible.
Yeah, I can't argue with you. I hope it ends up being the type of season we're all expecting because you get the Canes back on top. Whew, nothing's better than that. No,
definitely not. And let me tell you, as much as the fan base around the country hates the Canes, man, they are a ratings machine. Yep. All right, the NCAA loves, especially ABC. They always find a way to put them on primetime if they can, where they play a top opponent. So we'll see about that. By the way, a good friend of ours is just turned 40 years old. Okay, so I have to announce, if you don't have him on X, all right, our good friend, Mr. Alex Dono.
Wow.
Okay, Mr. Alex Dono, his birthday is today, and he just turned 40.
Is it?
Okay.
Is it really his birthday?
It's his birthday. Yes, today. Happy birthday, Alex Dono. And Alex Dono, whenever we land a recruit, he always gives his welcome to the U comment. So I'm going to say, before you go, Ms. Solana, ask me how I did from a scale of 1 to 10. I'm going to say, Alex Dono, welcome to your 40s. How'd I do?
That's a 10 right there. That's a 10.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you, brother. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Alejandro Solana, the old tongue twister there. Alejandro Solana, thank you so much for joining us. Please catch him on Hawkman and Crowder every day, Monday through Friday from 2 to 6. And of course, listen to him on Game Day Uncensored with Brendan Tobin 4 hours before the Dolphins kick off. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you heard, please do not forget to like this channel, subscribe to this channel, and share this channel, everybody. For myself and Alejandro Solana, have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining us at 305 Sports Now and our 305 live segment. God bless, guys. See you soon. Fins up.